Morning to all. I'm Prachi Pasilkar, and on behalf of Pune Knowledge Cluster, I welcome all of you to this fourth lecture of this Science and Technology at the rate 75 lecture series of the Pune Knowledge Cluster and Indian Academy of Sciences. We are having this lecture series on the eve of 75th year of India's independence, and today is the fourth lecture of the series. And for today's talk, we have with us Professor Satish Ogale. I now call upon Professor Ajit Kembhavi. Professor Kembhavi is the principal investigator of the Pune Knowledge Cluster, and he is a renowned astrophysicist and the former director of Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, which is popularly called as IUCA. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prachi. Good morning, everybody. Wishing you all a happy Ganesh Chaturthi. This is, as Prachi said, this is the fourth lecture in a series that we are conducting in collaboration with the Indian Academy of Sciences. The Pune Knowledge Cluster, as many of you will be aware, has a very large capacity building program, very wide capacity rather than large. We arrange courses, advanced courses for young professionals, young researchers, and we, in addition to that, we arrange a series of webinars. In the future, sometime there will be face-to-face seminars. At the present time, we will be contented with the webinar, and these are on different topics. The present series is just one of those. And those of you who attended the ones before will find that there is a sharp change of subject from topic to topic. There are many fellows of the Indian Academy of Sciences in Pune, and we hope to bring all of them to you one after the other in this series. Professor Satish Ogale, as you know, is a very fine physicist. He is nationally and internationally known. He's an emeritus professor at IISER now, and my colleague, Dr. Shilpa Jain, will be introducing him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to introduce Professor Satish Ogale. Professor Ogale is the Director, Research Institute for Sustainable Energy, the Chatterjee's Group Center for Research and Education in Science and Technology, Kolkata, and Emeritus Professor at Department of Physics and Center for Energy Science, IISER, Pune. His current research field of interest is clean energy and sustainability. He has over 500 research publications in reputed international journals and 9 granted US patents based on research done in India. He has also co-edited 3 books for Springer, Wiley, and Elsevier. His Google Scholar H index is 81, and he has over 32,000 citations. He has supervised over 65 PhD students in India and US. He is on the editorial advisory boards of several high-impact journals and has won several national awards recognitions, including INSA Young Scientist Medal, B.M. Birla Prize, Sir C.V. Raman Prize, MRSI Silver Jubilee Medal, the Ramanujan Fellowship, Raja Ramana Fellowship, etc. He is also elected Fellow of Indian Academy of Science, the National Academy of Sciences, and Maharashtra Academy of Science. With him as one of the leaders from the Indian side, the UK-India Solar Energy Program was recognized with International Newton Prize and the Times Higher Education Award for International Collaboration. Currently, he is working with major industries such as KPIT and Livguard on battery development for electric mobility. With this introduction, I would like to welcome Professor Ogale for his talk. The title of his talk today is Planning for a Clean and Green Tomorrow. Thank you. Over to you, Professor Ogale.
Yeah, thank you, Shilpa, very much for the kind and generous introduction. Thank you, Professor Ajit Kembhavi, for inviting me to give this talk here in a very prestigious forum, and also to Prachi Pasalkar for facilitating the whole process here. I will now share my slides and then make a few general remarks. Okay, let me just take
a small note to all the participants. So we will be taking your questions in the chat box. So kindly type your questions in the chat box. We will take it at the end of the talk. Thanks.
Just give me 1 second. I will just share the slides first. All right. And can you see the full screen? Maybe Prachi can tell us.
Yes, sir. We can see the full screen.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much again. And it's an honor and a good opportunity to be with many young students giving this talk. Generally, most professors like us are familiar, are more sort of commonly giving talks either at research conferences, invited, or plenary talks, or we give popular talks sometimes in general fora, and also classroom teaching, different subjects and so on. Today, what I will do is I will try, along with some popular type of talk and something to enthuse youngsters about our future, what I will try to do is to blend in some of my own personal perspectives to offer what I think, what is the current situation, and then how we should go about it, especially in India. So I will blend in a little bit of ideas about analysis, planning, and own perspectives. Okay, so planning for a clean and green tomorrow. What are the options and opportunities is the title I've chosen. This is somewhat uncommon than the usual types of talks. And all of us, many of the initial slides I'm going through, which will be more or less what everybody knows and everybody is aware about what is going on. But then just to bring a perspective to the whole talk, I will make some initial slides and comments, and then go over to some of the things which I want to really talk about to open a discussion and generate some thought-provoking kind of ideas amongst the youngsters. So all of us know very well that, we are all concerned about strong pollution, both the atmospheric pollution generated by industries, generated by transportation, using all sorts of fuels which are polluting. We also see that there is a lot of pollution in water resources. Let me just get this pointer done. Okay, so all this water resource, we are not even aware how deeply these affect and influence our health because they go into the river system in various ways, and that affects, and you can see here on the left-hand side that all our health is completely affected by all this pollution in a very serious way. And I'm not making a new point here, but all of us very well are aware about that. Now, also, this is again, few slides to put things into perspective. The global CO2 emissions continue to rise, as you can see, because of these pollutions. And unless we do something about it, these have significant influence on global warming. You can see here, even the temperatures are growing up. And some people say, oh, some measurements are not correct, some measurements are not fully, authentic, and so on. So this slide, which I took from NASA slide, where there are 5 or 6 different, groups who have measured this, there is a complete agreement that the temperature has been rising, and this is going to be a problem because it has affected our ecosystem and environment very dramatically. So on the left, you can see what was in some region here, where in Alaska in 2005, and then in 2017, it is the right-hand side picture that you see. One would say the right-hand side also looks very nice and pretty, but remember, the evidence that is being produced here is that the temperature is rising and it has some influence, and eventually it will not look this pretty if you continue to do so. Okay, so this is quite a serious matter, and we need to attend to it in a rather emergent and urgent way. Okay. Now, you also see, and in the last couple of years, we have seen that the complete weather patterns are changing. I have been born and brought up in Pune, and I see that this rain coming all the time in September, and the rain starting very early, suddenly stopping in the middle, etc., is not something which we had seen. Sometimes last year, even up to Diwali, there was rain and things like that, and all these weather patterns you can feel changing. Much of that is considered to be due to the environmental changes, climate changes, and so on. And it has led to devastation in all sectors, not only in India, but internationally. The number of these huge storms which are coming are hitting Kolkata, hitting south, and hitting elsewhere, and so on, have been disastrous. And we need to worry about these matters very, very urgently now. Okay, so our question for all of us is whether we burn ourselves or whether we have a very clean sort of environment where we rely mostly on renewable energies like solar energy, ocean energy, wind energy, and geothermal energy, and so on. So we have been addicted to using these bad fossil fuels to a very large extent because this gives us energy easily. But the consequences are so hazardous that we need to get rid of this addiction. As societies, this addiction is more like a smoking addiction. Okay, I would sort of compare with the smoke on the left-hand side here as the person is showing, in the same spirit that, it is very difficult to get something out from our system when it is an easy kind of a fuel that is accessible, available, etc. But fortunately, for all of us and for our civilization, that particular fuel is going to end in another 50, 100 years' time. And therefore, the importance of renewables is becoming even more significant because we have to go to the renewable clean energy sources and so on. So this is very, very important. Now, there have been artist depictions, which I always find, I'm a sort of student of these sustainability issues, and I always find in certain magazines, there's artist depictions about how Paris would look like in case we shift completely almost to renewables, how the Italian cities will look like. And then there are all these green things which we should strive for. That's why a green tomorrow or a clean tomorrow is something that all of us should strive for as a collective responsibility. Okay. Then there are other things which people are thinking very actively, where the farming is considered to be a vertical farming. You can consider farming like this, okay, because you have limitations on how the soil resources, that they have been completely depleted of nutrients and so on. Nutrients can be dispensed into vertical farming through water. Therefore, this is called as hydroponic farming also, because in hydroponic farming, you actually give to the roots the nutrients that the roots get from soil. But then when you do vertical farming, or even treating the whole building, let's say a 50-story building as a farm, a vertical farm, because you have a lot of solar energy coming, and then things can grow out, and what would be a wonderful situation when you have some vegetables growing just outside your window, and you just, instead of going to a market, you just do it properly and just get the vegetables for yourself and so on. So this is a kind of a wonderful world that one would like to go to. Okay. And I found in some of the websites that I was just browsing that even for Delhi, there are artist descriptions, and there are engineers who are trying to think about how a Delhi train station will look like if we plan things well, and how Delhi will look like, the right-hand side here versus what it looks like currently. Okay, so I think if you have this artist imagination to go there, our whole world will be extremely beautiful, a livable place for all of us to coexist and survive sustainably. Okay, so we all must make an effort to drive the whole system to go in that particular direction. Okay, now to do that, we have to think where we are and how things have to be managed. Okay, so if you consider here, even now we are using all this. This is a 2019. You have petroleum and other liquids, biomass and mass and waste, coal, natural gas. All of this we are using so much, and renewable resources, some of them, other renewable resources is only 1%, and some of the other ones are few percent resources. Okay. This is India's total primary energy consumption. And as our government has been pushing very hard for solar energy, green hydrogen, and so on, I hope, and all of us can hope, that in years to come, we will be going very strongly towards green energy. In fact, many of you must have heard the speech by one of the biggest billionaires produced by India, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, that they are going to put 75,000 crore rupees into all these green technologies fuel cells, batteries, green hydrogen, things like that. So there seems to be awakening about these issues, and people are going to do something about it in years to come. But I will come to that. What is the dream, imagination, and the policy implementation, whether these all are synergistically connected or not, is going to be very important. One should also look at this energy consumption by sector map. This is slightly older one for the whole world. And you see here that transportation uses oil here, and so industry uses oil, residential and commercial uses natural gas, electric power uses coal. So whenever you consider these polluting fuels, different sectors of human activity are using them differently. Okay, so we have to sample each particular human activity and try to see how we can engage technology with these activities and try to solve the problems which are correspondingly developed in those sectors. Then we have also the per capita electricity consumption. You can see the developed countries, Canada, USA, Europe, and Japan, Australia, they're using a lot of energy per capita, that is per person. But then India and China are much lower on that scale. China is rising already, and India will rise. So what we have to think about is that we have to do the development responsibly by blending in more and more of renewable resources. Okay, and this graph is also very interesting, which is human development index versus per capita power consumption. And you see this graph is like rising very rapidly, but then saturating quite a bit beyond a certain value. Now, what does it mean? Look at India here. India is here, which is about maybe 2 units kilowatt per person of usage of power, okay, in India. Okay, of course, remember one thing, India is completely, much of the power usage is in urban areas. Okay, so the average is low because in rural areas, the consumption is very low, and almost 70% people are our farmers sitting in the rural areas. So our consumption in urban areas could be higher. Okay, but what we need to do is, you will see that if we just increase on the x-axis, go a little bit to the right, we'll land up between Brazil and Portugal here. Okay, and that quality of life should be good enough for many people. Okay, we are fairly closer to the advanced countries in terms of human development index. And then you don't have to move to the right, because this extra, suppose you go above 5, doing up to 30, the quality of life is not increasing much. So why waste that extra power? Okay, so we need to add a little bit of more energy per person or per capita into the energy input for the development for our country to dramatically enhance the quality of life of our people. And we have to find this energy from where it is going to come. And it is better it will come from renewable sources. Okay, so that is where our target should be. Now you see the world also, I'm just flashing few more slides. Our world around us is going to change. Our transportation is going to be electric, okay? Because if it is electric mobility, and if this electric power is harnessed from renewable sources like solar and wind, okay, with strong batteries or strong charging stations, okay, which are bringing the renewable power into the actual transportation, we will save a lot of bad fuel, okay, and the corresponding pollution. So our lives are going to change. In fact, government, as you know, many times they are saying that they will go completely electric by 2030. Even if not 2030, even if it is 2040, our lives will become much, much better. But then where will you find the energy? So we need to work very, very efficiently and quickly on the renewable energy front for this to happen into a reality. By the way, electric cars were invented long back. In fact, in 1859, the lead acid battery was invented. And immediately in 1887, they already, you see these batteries below here, and people had guts to sit on these almost dangerous batteries, which were just discovered some 20, 30 years before. And they already made an electric car, first fully electric car in 1887. Now the modern car, the Tesla electric car is 2018, is a fancy one, but there is again below now a set of lithium batteries. We have to worry about safety. We have to worry about, accident. We have to worry about recharging stations, everything. But then we are going in that direction. And since India is declaring to be a very active partner in the process of electric mobility, we have to start thinking about this very, very strongly and quickly. Okay, and there are going to be electric buses and so on. Even the charging devices, there are batteries, there are supercapacitors, there are supercapacitor battery banks and so on and so forth. All these particular things, are going to be contributing to the energy mix. Now you should also think, a young student should think that there are all these new transportation devices and ideas which are coming up, like flying cars, which you can see here. A car will go on the road, and if there is a little bit of a problem, the car can fly, just put on more something as a wing, and then land and drive and so on. But this is this kind of thing is like hybrid transportation. You have a little bit uplift, okay, and then you try around. It is not a plane flying to 10,000 feet height or 30,000 feet height and so on and so forth. But you can have a little bit of elevation and things of that nature. There could be, if some of you bright students can discover room temperature superconductivity, it will be more like maglev trains, or similar to that. There will be trains which will fly on the superconductors. So the whole train will be lifted a few millimeters or maybe a centimeter or so above the superconducting tracks. Okay, and then you will have to go by a jet at a very high speed and so on and so forth. Okay, this hyperloop is based on extremely rapid vacuum process and so on. And this is hyperloop concept is coming to reality. Then we are going to have the transportation, which is driverless car. In fact, my son Abhijit was one of the senior engineers there working on this project. And I had an occasion to ride this car, which you have a photo here, self-driving car. And the car actually, without, the driver was there, but he was not touching any wheel. And we went onto the California roads. Okay, and it was a very, apparently, my son, since he has contributed to this technology, we were safe, he was with us and so on. We felt quite safe with this. And, at one point, the car stopped. Okay, because there was a crane working in the middle and so on. And then the car was taught to follow the rules. Now, as if we were human, we would just bend around and go, because we see that the crane will not move for another 20 minutes, so we are not going to sit there. But the car was taught to the rules. Okay, so my son said that this is where machine learning will be important. The car will be given through different hurdles, and slowly its whole machinery, the computational machinery, will learn how to bend the rules when it is not absolutely dangerous, as a human being does. We do that from the just from our childhood. We start learning different things, but bending the rules and breaking the rules are two different things. I have seen that in India, many people have this tendency of just jumping the red signal. Even the bus person, a bus driver keeps honking from behind when you are trying to follow the rule, and just stopping at the red signal. He says, why are you not going? So these kinds of things happen, and we have to learn the rules. Only under some emergency situations, we get the luxury of bending them slightly and so on. But the message here is that our whole lives are going to change soon. But remember, where is the power going to come from? We are so much electrically driven modern society that we never think, where is the power going to come from for all this? We are electrically driven society, and therefore, if the fossil fuels, diesel, petrol, natural, all these things are going to pollute the whole world, and we are going to be so emphatic on using a lot of electricity in all these, our whole world will become like a black smoke, unless we really do it responsibly. Okay, you can see this world, beautiful world is around us if we want it to be beautiful. Okay, then we are trying to harness energy from all over the place, from thermal energy from seas, the energy from waves, and so on and so forth. And and so on. So energy is needed for all those things, and we are scouting energy from everywhere. Now, all of you know, and you have very enthusiastically looked at space race between these three billionaires, and they are trying to make space tourism a reality. Okay, but then again, you need a lot of power to do that, and you have to think from where it is going to come from. But what I'm trying to emphasize, and again, I'm not trying to say that I'm making a very huge different point, but I want everybody to start thinking that this is something which is our new world, and we need to seek origin of clean power to remain green and beautiful future for all of us. Okay. Remember the one thing, these are all big time things, the space race and all those kinds of big stuff which is going on. These are all in newspapers and everybody knows about it. But even on individual scale, the next generation device systems are entirely different. They are going to be flexible. Remember one thing, that if you want to be saving power, you have to make the devices ultra high performing. That means you use less power, but do the same function or even better function. They should be flexible, thin and lightweight, so that the material input is very low. Okay, the technology should be more like a printing technology, which is easy to implement. They should be either self-powered or low-powered. Okay, and this is possible for thin, lightweight device. Okay, because if the device is a lot of hardware, it dissipates a lot of energy. And that energy is not actually the energy used for the device action, but it is an irreversible dissipation of energy, which you are not going to access. Okay. And these devices have to be robust, because people will say, oh, I can make a flexible battery or a flexible sensor or something, but that is not enough. It has to be very strong. It has to be robust as well, because when we are making a technology, it has to be robust. Okay. Now, even these flexible organic transistor, leaf-like things and so on, world is changing. Then we are also having robotics, AI, machine learning, data science. Again, energy is required for all this. These are all fantastic imaginations from human being, but most of these imaginations need power. And you have to design these devices so that the power is very low. I will also tell you one other thing. IoT, you are all familiar with IT, okay, information technology. Now what is coming is information. Now what is coming is that Internet of Things, IoT. That means things will be smart, okay? Everything will be sensed, smart grid, okay? Smart hospital, smart highway, smart factory, smart city. We always hear all these. But remember, to be smart, okay, we are not going to employ 100,000 people here, because this is not something when the person looks elsewhere and a bus collides with something else, okay, because, somebody did not pay attention. This is all going to be controlled by devices, and they need power. And so the power input people have calculated, and we need to reduce power consumption 10 times, or 10 times higher power will be required unless we do these devices in a small way. So the message that I want to communicate to the young people here is that this power is something that all of us need to worry about. In India, the situation is also becoming specific to India. We have cities which are shown on the left side. We use enormous amount of power, and we have to stop wasting that power. Secondly, 70% of our people in rural villages, where right from water, cooking, and education, everywhere, they are starving for power. Okay, so when we are going to take power to villages through different connections and so on, and if everybody tries to use a lot of power, it better be a renewable power. We cannot have a bad fuel to be giving the power. We can at the same time cannot deny development to the rural area. The only thing we can do is, as we keep on doing a transmission of development to the rural areas, we have to do it responsibly so that we change our world to a better one or a better future, which is very, very important. Okay. Now, this is how the situation in India looks like. So how it is in reality and how it looks like because of pollution. You see, this is where we want to go here by controlling the pollution. And this is something which I think we have to actively look at. We have other problem of population. You can see here, which is very, very difficult. Whatever technology you do, we have to see that our population is something which is fed properly, who have jobs properly, and we have things to eat and so on and so forth. They need water, drinking water and opportunities. And you can see here, drinking water situation. You see there is a single well, there is a fully crowded by people. Then there is this problem of, industrial water pollution. When there is a corruption, of course, it exists in all countries. It is not an India problem. Governments always try to stop this corruption to one extent or the other. People do different things, and there are different people at all levels. If they go through this corruption, getting permissions to dump industrial water here or not, or just don't have a fear of law, we are creating an ecosystem which is extremely dangerous. And for a big country with so many people, this is going to be very dangerous. So we have to be very, very careful in planning the future if it has to look green, clean, and beautiful for our people. Now, so far, when I talk about energy, there are three angles of energy: energy conversion, storage, and conservation. Okay, in conversion, many people talk about solar cells, solar water splitting of hydrogen. I have not included wind energy or other geothermal energy and so on, because I mainly work in the solar energy front in these domains. But there are many, many materials that our intelligent chemistry and physics people are working in the country and developing different things. But I will tell you what are the problems, and I will come to that very quickly. So we have been working on this. And in solar energy, there are hundreds of different types of solar cells. There are some solar cells which are even 47% using some specialty materials, but they are very, very expensive. Then there are silicon solar cells of different kind. Then there are the perovskite solar cells and so on, which are relatively new. So these particular things are going on. Research is going on. But here again, we have to think all the time that how this can be made cheaper, because implementation would need, large-scale implementation would need cost to be down. Okay, now you have hydrogen. I talked about green fuel. Currently, the price is between 6 to 8 to 10 for green hydrogen. It is actually come down since this slide was made. It is around 6 to 7, but it has to come to, as Mr. Ambani said the other day, they are now targeting $1 per kg by 20. We are not here at, this was an old slide, so it is, we are not 2 to 4 pounds per kg. Especially green hydrogen is still like $6 per kg. But it has to come down to less than 2 and preferably $1 per kg. It has to be made a technology. Okay, and then there are various types of generating hydrogen. But this one, water electrolysis, all of the students know that if you have 2 plates into water, and if you apply a potential difference above a certain threshold, you put some KOH or even some acid or NaCl, NaOH or KOH, then you can split water. Hydrogen comes out from one side, the oxygen comes out from the other side. Okay, now people are saying, oh, it is easy now, use solar energy and set up a solar panel and then get the voltage that you need and just split water. The problem is that it is not cost effective. Green hydrogen is not cost effective. Many people have also thought about directly using photolysis of water using some catalysts and so on. So major research is going on in developing catalysis, okay, for splitting of water to generate hydrogen and oxygen. And we are doing a lot of work. Since this is not a technical talk, I'm not showing many things here related to that. But then I think this particular thing is going to be a big technological advantage in years to come. And if some young people are trying to look for starting either some startups or they are trying to do decide a topic for PhD, green hydrogen is a very, very fertile area to deliver in long term. Then we have electrical energy storage. these batteries and so on. So many of batteries will be needed. Now, in India, unfortunately, we do not have a manufacturing base or developing base for batteries. I'm going to talk about this a little bit, but if government is going to electric mobility by 2030, there will have to be a strong battery manufacturing base here. Because remember, if we were to only think about importing batteries from China or somewhere, you have to ensure about the quality, robustness, how long they will survive, how many times they can be cycled and so on. And if international relations, are involved, then our national energy security goes into jeopardy. Okay, so suppose you decide that you are going to get batteries from outside, from 2 or 3 different countries. And if for certain reason our relations soar because of other problems and they stop supplying us batteries, we will be sitting with millions of vehicles in cities. We would have gone to completely electrical mobility, and then we have no batteries. Okay, and other countries will then squeeze us into cost, and then the whole thing will be a problem. So we have to develop technologies. And remember, even lithium batteries, if the whole world is going to make say millions and millions and millions of cars, and everything is on batteries, with all the hyperloop to all transportation trains, everything on batteries and things like that, how much of lithium exists in the world? Here it shows that there are certain countries which have some lithium, and even the lithium in Argentina and Brazil and so on, Chile and so on, countries like China, I understand, have already booked a lot of hills there where lithium exists. Okay, and India does not have so far a very known strong resource of lithium. So I will come to this particular point in another 5 minutes time when we discuss what we have been doing. Instead of lithium battery, why not some other technologies like sodium battery, or even some other technologies like aluminum, magnesium batteries, zinc air batteries? Number of other options are there. So we have to start thinking in India about how we are going to do this and how we are going to be dependent on this and so on. Okay. Also, in each one of the battery that we have in our pocket, in our mobile, this all is imported. Okay. We don't manufacture batteries in the country. Now, there is a compound, lithium cobalt oxide, in lithium battery. Okay. And lithium battery in the whole world is only 4% of the crust, while sodium, for example, is 9.1%, potassium is 2.36%. Earlier, lithium was the initial success, and there was a material for lithium as a cathode and an anode. So on the anode side, graphite succeeded. We found a wonder material, graphite, which works extremely well with lithium. So people went there, and it was an established technology. Now people are realizing lithium is very small in the Earth's crust. Similarly, lithium cobalt oxide is used in the cathode, but cobalt is a very tiny element fraction. Why not work with iron-based materials, or copper or aluminum, which are much more in quantity? So we have to completely redefine the doctrine of battery material design and synthesis as we go along. Okay. Now, the other very interesting thing is the circular economy. You will get many, many slides. I give a source here of one slide I just chose randomly, that when we do devices, remember, if you take a battery, our children are playing trains and so on, and once the battery goes off, the primary battery, which charge is all gone, then we just throw out somewhere. Okay, it has a lot of lithium, it has a lot of cobalt. Okay, it has a lot of even contact materials, sometimes precious elements and things like that, and we just throw away, and we don't even know where it is going. Okay, so lithium recycling or even sodium recycling, whatever, we have to go in that direction. Now, sodium is so much there because we have a seafront, the whole Sagarmala project of India. We have a lot of salt around us, and even the Tatas have this Tata salt and so on. So they have a control on the sodium technology in some way or the other. In fact, I had an occasion to give a talk in annual sort of conference of Tata Chemicals, where their CEO, Mr. Mukundan was there. And when I was discussing some of the things about sodium, he said, we have control on almost 70% of sodium things in India. And if it can be used for sodium batteries instead of lithium batteries, that would be wonderful and so on. So I think we have to think comprehensively about these aspects in one way or the other. Okay, for want of time, I will just rush through a few slides that we have our own in terms of circular economy that I talked about. We just did a lot of work to carbon. Carbon is a very technology material. We have done some work on making carbon from the tree leaves like this and trying to make a supercapacitor using that. Okay, so we can make from dead leaves to high capacity supercapacitors. This is something where a waste to wealth category. We have also used waste paper. These were some fun stuff that we did, which was very important, from waste paper basket to ultra capacitor electrodes. We call it a value added journey for a shredded office paper. And say everything is carbon around us, and what we have to do is we have to synthetically tune the carbon to give us the best battery performance. We were kind of in the news internationally. Waste paper turned into super sponge battery and so on. The famous journalist Jacob Aron, wrote an article on our work and things like that. One of my students from Kashmir, Malik Wahid, okay, he came up with an idea. He said that we have this walnut, okay, a lot of walnut is produced. We eat the inside, and the outside shell is something which is just thrown. So he said, in most situations it is thrown. So he said, why not try to use that also? Because many of the supercapacitor grade carbon is made from coconut shell. So when we actually looked at this one, the scanning electron micrograph, it showed a very nice layered structure as it is. And when we pyrolyzed it at high temperature, okay, heated at high temperature, we got a carbon which also showed a layered structure like this. And we could use this for sodium ion battery. Say graphite has layers which are very close to each other, okay? While for sodium is a little bit larger ion than lithium, so it doesn't go easily into graphite. Okay, so for that you need a layered structure where the layer spacing is slightly more and so on. So we actually showed that this walnut derived carbon can be used there. And therefore we called it nutty carbon, and it was a kind of interesting title for this paper. And we were in the news in Kashmir, in fact, Bahadur Khan, president of our Walnut Growers Association, said that this is till now, it is sold outside and it is also dumped and things like that. And the work done in Pune, can address some electricity crisis and things like that. I don't know whether this will happen, but it was kind of interesting circular economy research that we could do. And these are the students. See, sometimes we did some work on lead, something dead leaves and so on. But it is not easy to collect that waste, although there are more separating waste and so on efforts going on. But if you consider sugarcane bagasse, it's waste of sugarcane after taking out the juice itself can give you a very nice battery material. And you see, these are the three students where they were making batteries and supercapacitors. Now this Dr. Abhig Banerjee did further work, postdoc work in UC San Diego. Shruti Agarkar later, after doing PhD in my group, went to Georgia Tech. Dhanya did further work in Purdue University. So they were just enjoying actually making devices in the lab. Let me quickly come to something more. Let us go to options and opportunities, which was a talk of my title. What are our options? Okay, not many given the circumstances, but to be self-reliant. So self-reliance is the option. Okay, we cannot depend on other countries to be doing that. In fact, our government has these programs. See, I'm not a spokesperson for our government, although I certainly feel that they have identified Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India as the important points that they are trying to emphasize. But remember, it should not be assembled in India. Okay, so the technologist industry should realize that it should be make in India, right? Not assemble in India. Okay, so Atmanirbhar will not be otherwise valid. And opportunities, if you talk about opportunities, the opportunities do not come naturally. They will have to be created through industry, academia, and government synergistic cooperation. Okay, and how that is going to work? Look at here. If you take industry, academia, government nexus, okay, government works in national interest. That includes all our interest, people's interest, and everything. Also, international interest, because how our nation is poised as against other nations in terms of strength, self-reliance, everything, right? Academia, on the other hand, there are three things for careers of people, academic interest, career interest, and national interest. Industry has economic interest, growth prospect, growth interest, and national interest. Now, how these wheels, government, academia, and industry, these gears, how they could synergistically move in the interest of the progress of the nation, will have to be thought about. Now, if you consider government and academia, sustained funding, first-rate research infrastructure, administrative efficiency are things that have to be worked out here. In government-industry interaction, subsidies, supply chain issues, infra development are to be developed. Between academia and industry, mutual confidence and respect is necessary, mutual value of interaction. Unless there is a value to this interaction, nobody likes to work together. Okay. Now, let me go a little bit further and I will show you the laboratory infrastructure that we have developed. This is where funding mainly comes from the government, and I must acknowledge the support from Department of Science and Technology, MNRE, and MEITY, the Electronics Commission, Original Electronics Commission, CSIR. Okay, all these funding agencies have supported this infrastructure, and we have all these glow boxes, laser, then battery making facilities, pouch cell making facilities. We have all these battery making facilities, testing infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So government has a contribution here. Although we have to write good projects, we have to go present them to different agencies, try to get funding as young faculty member, old faculty member, or mid-age faculty member, whatever. You have to establish your track record to be able to get these funds. And then you are able to make something where you will be able to talk to industry. And I'm going to show you a few examples how it has worked out. Now, we have worked out that this is KPIT Pune, is a very progressive company, and this is being led by the founder and group CEO, Mr. Ravi Pandit. And it was a very pleasant coincidence that, while I was in NCL, he actually called me once and he said, that I want to come and talk to you about some of the things. And it started suddenly through his vision about something, and that followed into 3 or 4 projects that we undertook. Okay, first it was onboard hydrogen for production through electrolysis. The other one was supercapacitor development. And now we have worked on sodium ion battery. You will not believe that there will be 150 weekly meetings with technical teams from IISER and KPIT attending, including Mr. Ravi Pandit, who attended all the meetings. A CEO of a company which has more than 21 offices worldwide and which have more than, let's say, 12,000 engineers appointed and so on, decided that he needs to develop the battery indigenously. And then we sort of matched our interest and enthusiasm. And you can see this battery has come to sort of for rickshaw and buses. We are working. In fact, KPIT has started a sentient labs, a new kind of an enterprise, and they are working on that. So this was something which was very, very interesting that we could do. And we have made the fast charging 4C, meaning in 15 minutes charging battery, 80% charging in 10 minutes, no dependency on lithium and cobalt, okay? 80% retention of battery over 4,000 cycles, wide operating temperature window, and no plating of sodium metal. It is a kind of a safe operation. And then you can see here all sorts of parameters. Where if somebody is interested in details, they can write to me and we'll be very happy to share this information. This is a team, and I will like to tell you that in this team, the 5 PhDs who are driving this project in KPIT were earlier co-workers and PhD students from my group, okay, initially at NCL and then at IISER. So this created the employment and a reasonably technical employment for PhD students and postdocs into KPIT who are driving this project. So I thought I would like to mention this. There is another collaboration we are working with a company, LiveGuard. This is another very visionary and progressive thinker, Rakesh Malhotra, Mr. Rakesh Malhotra, who is the founder and mentor. And you can all see the website of LiveGuard. They have already been in this business earlier with lead acid batteries, and now they are going strongly in lithium ion batteries. We have Mr. Satyajit Atlekar from their SAR group, the famous SAR group, and with the remarkable vision and foresight of Mr. Malhotra, we have embarked on this project. And you can see we are making all these coatings, we are making cutting and everything, and you can see we are making pouch cells with the desired performance for these batteries and so on. So this is something where these very high-end industry people began to interact with us, and we could use the government-funded infrastructure. And both of these gentlemen, the CEOs and founders of these large companies, they actually also co-funded the program for specific developments in a very handsome way. And we are now going to soon produce patentable technologies in India with this. Okay, these are all the parameters which we are targeting. These are something that we have realized, and so on and so forth. Okay, KPIT has also been working with other institutes like Agarkar Research Institute, which is a very progressive, very agriculture related institute. In fact, I'm happy to be a part of their trustee board there, and along with some very senior people, Mr. Dr. Kakodkar and so on. And this particular institute is also working with KPIT, and KPIT has now produced a technology to develop hydrogen through anaerobic digestion of biomass. So hydrogen with some microbes directly from biomass, not like a secondary process and things of that nature. And they have shown benefiting economy of the country, mitigating pollution, livelihood of farmers and employment generation. This is something which is very interesting, and I think we have tremendous idea of the whole country is full with people with extremely good talents. Okay, government has always great plans. Suppose Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India plans. Industry people are also full with engineers who can translate research into technology. But then why it has not been working that much fantastically as it works in some of the developed countries? The reason is we have to seek synergy. We have to develop trust. We have to give opportunities, and we have to have patience to deal with each other. Okay, so and these are the examples which I'm telling you. These sort of give you how this is all going to work out if all of us have a will to do something for our country based on our natural resources and so on. Now, I will come to certain personal perspectives and thoughts and just flash 4 or 5 slides before I conclude. If you consider research funding, I've seen in the country in the last 30, 40 years that I'm doing research, you need to bring breadth and diversity to the decision-making process. I see that only a very handful number of people are taking all decisions. I feel bringing young achievers in decision-making process is very important. Many senior people, should not all the time. There should be a mix of the experience of highly achieved senior people, but at the same time, we should build, bridges between young research achievers, okay, up to age of 40, 45. Then we can have mid-level researchers up to 50, 55, and then senior researchers. We should have a blend in the decision-making process. I think this will take us a long way. Then bringing industry experts into funding decision-making process. This is very important because otherwise industry says that whatever research you do is irrelevant to us. Okay, you should ask what do they want really and set certain goals. Not that many governments, the prior as well as the current, are not doing that. See, the whole thing is we have to get synergy into this whole process. There are, as I said, there are very smart people at all levels in our country, but it has to work in synergy and harmony. I always give an example that suppose you imagine a situation where you have an orchestra where the maestro, okay, drummer, a master of flute, a saxophone player, master of tabla person, master of bongo player, all are there on the stage, okay? And they start playing the best that they can, each one of them. But if there is no synergy, if there is no common theme, if there is no rhythm, it will be noise and not music, okay? So what we need to do is, we need to work hard on how to bring that synergy in. Okay, not that we don't have experts, not that we don't have thinkers at all levels, the best ones, okay, but then the synergy has to be. Okay, shunning culture of suboptimal funding. Everybody starts screaming that I asked for 2 crores, I got 50 lakhs, etc. That never works, okay? Then continuity of funding support. We always are in a situation where we say, oh, I got some fund, I came up to this level, then I wrote a grant to go further, that was not approved. Okay, there is nobody there is no mechanism to look at what this, see, I will tell you, there is always a progress report which is filed, it is submitted to few experts, they call it excellent, good, very good, whatever, but then what? Whatever, there has to be, according to me, something mechanism where some agency is there to look at whether it can be taken to a product, whether it can be elevated, whether it can be networked and so on. So I have many thoughts. I'm going to write some article since to give this talk, I began to think about this. I will soon come up with certain article on this. Secondly, support for maintenance of high-end equipment. I find that sometimes the fund is given 10 crores for some equipment. After 3 years, when the project is ended, there is some small vacuum pump for, missing, and it requires 3 lakhs of rupees. Then the whole instrument is stuck. It is like you have a Mercedes, but the tire is punctured, and you don't have money to fix that punctured tire. What are you going to do with the Mercedes? Okay, so we have to think about this. These are very, very kind of, I am telling you pragmatic points which I am talking about through personal experience. That's why I say strong initial evaluation, but weak follow. People sit in a committee, 10 people, experts, they ask hard questions, etc., and finally approve a project. After 3 years, they give remarks, excellent, very good, etc. That project is filed, okay, but the continuity is not there. Anyway, I have so many things, decisions to make. Then human resource management. We need massive recognition and rewards for applied science. Okay, I feel that applied sciences needs respect in this country. Okay, there are these points you can read, and you can probably, since I don't have too much time to go into each point, because each point will need 5 minutes for a clear discussion. Okay, and then you have various kinds of points which are mentioned. Since this particular talk will be there on YouTube, you could probably think of these points, and I would be more than happy to engage with you on this thinking and so on. I say dramatically enhancing grants for students, faculty, for travel. Your internationalism has to be reflected. We all learn a lot through interactions, and we should go, out of our way to support all these things. Then there are other things like empowerment of women in science, then changing our value system, respecting experimental work, making things, okay? And this important point I want to make, put in the red, stopping imitating the West in content and style of research, okay? What about the Indianness in terms of understanding our circumstances, identifying our problems and solving them, okay? Just a few days back, I heard a TV interview of one of my teachers, Professor Ram Takole. He was a vice chancellor of Pune University, as well as is considered an education Maharshi. And he gave a very interesting example. See, he said that and that struck me. He said he was visiting IIT Kanpur, and in the morning for a breakfast, he was just waiting for breakfast to be ready, and he was scouting the notice boards in the guest house at IIT Kanpur, the top institution in the country. And he found there was a quiz problem given, okay, by certain professor who may have written from US and so on. And that problem was like this, that there is a new library in New York, okay, and it has a lighting distribution which is given, okay. Now you saw this lighting distribution is inadequate. So can you redistribute in such a way that you get optimum lighting in the New York library? Okay, so the data was given for New York library, and the question was asked how to optimize. Okay, and Professor Takole very rightly said they could have simply given that from the Kanpur IIT library or Pune University library or any other library in India. You know, our thinking is so tied to Western content and style, you know, that we are so much gone into that. Even CSIR 800 was a wonderful idea which was promoted by former DG CSIR, Professor Brahmachari. He said that every PhD student in CSIR has to do this CSIR 800, meaning what can you do for 800 million people? Okay, and every student thinks of some problem, and it may not be a very elaborate experimental work, but he has to make a proposal. And that I liked as an idea because it brings in sort of Indianness to research. Okay, individual level, people have to collaborate and cooperate. They should seeking and actively pursuing win-win situations and shunning insecurity and sharing credit. Many people say, oh, who will be the first author in that paper? Who will be the second author? Am I the only corresponding author? Or somebody? You can always have some contract. Suppose I work and collaborate with some other professor, okay, and if the idea comes from that professor, okay, his student should be the first author and he should be the last corresponding author, senior author, okay. If I contribute the idea or my student contributes the idea, my student would be the first author and I would be the last corresponding author, and his student can be a joint corresponding author and he can be a joint corresponding author. So all these things can be worked out if you are a little bit mature and not very insecure, and I think it can go a long way in doing research in the various ways. Government can also do something very, very nice. And even other things which I have written here, I'm almost over time. I will like to conclude now in a few more minutes because like ensuring fair and equitable distribution, then makers labs, establishing manufacturing centers, precursor availability and purification. Our precursors go to Japan at extremely low cost and they come back in 20% more cost. Like stainless steel of high quality and so on. Why we don't have? We have ample precursors, we have no purification centers and so on. And these initiatives are lost in one way or the other. And then they are bringing industry strongly into R&D ecosystem also. And see, I said that special support should be there for startups. Make characterizations, institute support free for first 2 years. Now, institutes charge for making some TAM or XRD or something. Why not give it free for 2 years for startups? Okay. Or if you are charging 3,000 rupees for outside big industries, charge 300 rupees for them. Okay. Or 200 rupees, which is affordable. Otherwise, you are not going to do the hand holding in the right way and so on. I'm also thinking linking startups to big industry houses right from the inception is important. And the CSR funds, there can have a direct support to startups. With starting with a startup portal, some industry will say, oh, I will like to support this startup because it relates to my own industrial house in one way or the other. So all these things should be taken into consideration. I think, therefore, that it is very important for us to do something for our country. Many researchers, as I show here, these are some of the slides from our publications or different publications of people. We have to think, what can these graphs do, for this person who is in need for a pollution-free cooking stove or a clean water or anything. What are these graphs going to do for them? And this will sort of target, it does not mean the research has to be a rural research or just do something from wooden blocks or something. You can do high-end research, publish well, but then can it be taken to our own rural people in one way or the other? We are doing it in various ways for water purification, etc. I don't have time to go into these details. I will like to stop here, and I will thank the PKC one more time for this opportunity, and Ajit and all, thank you very much. Okay, I stop here.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very informative and resourceful talk, especially focusing on the need for green power and how world should move on to green power, and various options and opportunities that are available in this field and the current research which is going on. So we have received a lot of questions. For this, we can take a few. We have a question from Mr. Yogesh More, and is asking that what kind of solution should be implemented in order to improve indigenous battery manufacturing and recycling of batteries so that the energy security and geoparadization could be avoided. What is your take in terms of policy perception and scientific funding on the same?
Yeah, in fact, I think you may have asked this question before some of my last slides, but in any case, what I will suggest to you will be that here, the in connection of industries with startups and academia. So I can assure you that the industry, the academia in India now, especially in IITs, IISERs, and some of the national labs, like CSIR and so on, the research that is going on is of extremely good quality. But the industry now, in many times what happens is industry will like to try to look for an immediately translatable solution. And it would not happen very quickly unless you have some patience for a year or two to go through the product development, okay, a little bit of scale up, and then try to do. And like in the example that I worked with KPIT and LiveGuard, my group worked with these two industries. These were things which came from the industry initiatives, and it required visionaries who wanted to go out of their way to do something in India. And then we began to form a team. Okay, so it is a kind of a teamwork, and the government has already supported various laboratories with outstanding infrastructure. So for example, why I say government is important, because all my 100% money for the sodium-ion battery development cannot come from an industry, because the success, the guarantee of success cannot be provided immediately in terms of the parameters, whatever is the result, robustness, international competitiveness, etc. But the funding has come from industry to generate an infrastructure. With the funding from industry comes towards a specific problem, okay? And the two, with mutual trust in each other's capacities, will be able to do that. And I think government is now also bringing in programs like with LiveGuard. We submitted a project to DST, and Dr. Nirmalya Ballav and myself from IISER, and Mr. Satyajit Atlekar. We wrote a project from LiveGuard. We submitted project to DST to develop indigenous battery, lithium-ion battery for, let's say, solar to ground conversion, solar energy storage, and so on. And that project was recently approved. So I think we, government, industry, academia has been working. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So we have one more question from Mr. Arun Bhalupkar, and he's asking that what is the most effective way of generating hydrogen gas?
Most effective is talks about efficiency. Okay, but hydrogen field has two components. One, most efficiency, but lowest cost. Okay, because most of the electrolysis is the easiest one to do, but it is the highest cost. Okay, so if you see my slides, I had shown you different methods, right from algae, microbial, everything, and you can see the recorded the YouTube thing, which will be there on the PKC website, and those slides will summarize different hydrogen methods. But it is not simply the efficiency, it is the low cost which is stopping from hydrogen revolution to be brought in or unleashed onto the energy scene. And everybody is striving to do that in a very, very strong way in the coming 10 years or so. We are also doing a lot of research on catalyst development to achieve this. Okay.
Maybe can we take one more question?
Yeah, why not? If you have time. Yeah.
We have a question from Mr. Anup Thakre, and he's asking that to approach the problem in a scientific way, we need data like data, cost, parameters for various aspects of a problem we approach to get the prevalence of the problem. Say the problem related to energy storage, distribution, etc. How should one organization, institute approach such issues?
Yeah, for example, now Anup Thakre, this is a very, very important question. Two things. First of all, now, for example, IISER Pune has just started a data science center and department, AI and data science. It is going to be very important that they develop strategies for all areas in energy, get data, get sensors, and even, it is not simply a complex climate problem, but now even everything is going to be data intensive, and you have to develop models to analyze that data. If you are flooded with a lot of data, suppose you say, okay, where are the energy distribution, how things are going, what is the vehicular traffic, which countries have what, and so on. Now you have to have models to actually analyze that data, which can bring you to points where the maximum resources have been put to solve the problems and so on. So I think this is a data science and analytics problem. And now internationally, this problem is recognized. And the other thing I will tell you is that the industry academia interaction is very important even in this sector. Why? Because the way when I interacted with these companies, KPIT and LiveGuard, I see that their whole way of thinking has taught me as a researcher 100 different things which I would not have taught sitting in my laboratory and writing research papers. Okay, they immediately, after a little bit of progress is made, they immediately start having Excel sheet tables. Where is the material coming from? What is the cost? Endpoint, what are the different value chains which are being linked to each other, what part we are going to import, what is available in the country, what is available in the different sector, and so on and so forth. So this data science aspect, even for a project, builds quickly. Okay, so I think data science and analytics is something which is going to be extremely critical, and I think we need to build engines for that within the system, and even DST and other agencies will have to look at this very actively in different ways. And I think this is something which is a very, very good question, and it has to be done. Okay.
Thank you, sir. One last question. There are many people are asking about the performance-wise, whether sodium-ion battery is good or lithium-ion battery is good.
Now, sodium-ion battery and lithium-ion battery performance features are different in terms of sodium-ion battery has many problems much lesser than lithium in terms of safety, in terms of other matters, in terms of the robustness of the performance and so on. But because the gravimetric capacity, because sodium is a heavier ion, the gravimetric capacity is lower than lithium, but it is much more faster charging than lithium. So there are pluses and minuses. So they will not be competing for they will of course be competing for the same electric mobility domain. But if you were to say, okay, for a truck, will I use lithium battery or sodium battery versus for a rickshaw, what I will use, or for a two-wheeler, I will use, will I use a supercapacitor, a lithium battery combination, or a sodium-ion battery combination, etc. That is something which depends on the exact nature of the problem. So these batteries are there. Their performances are somewhat different in terms of detail, and therefore you cannot just replace one by the other. Okay, you have to see what the problem demands and then make a provision of appropriate battery choice, okay, for that particular application. So this is somewhat more, you may have to study a little bit more than a general answer. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. So there are more questions, but due to time crunch, we cannot take them.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much. It was a fantastic session, sir. And I thank you on behalf of Pune Knowledge Cluster for accepting our invitation for the talk. And I also thank all the participants for joining today's session. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And I will say that anybody who wants to, I just put here my email IDs. Gmail is the preferred one. Please feel free to write to me about any of your questions, concerns, comments, remarks. And when these talks, as Professor Kimbavi said, they will be available recorded. And therefore, you will have proper time to think about some of the slides which I had to rush through. Okay, so thank you all once again, the PKC team. And Ajit, thank you.
Thank you, Satish. Wonderful session.
Yes, thank you.